So I'm Saxon from Binary Space, and I'm here to talk about Cluster Outbreak. Nick initially asked me to talk about Flash game publishing and how to publish a Flash game, and I'm no particular expert. So what I thought I'd do is just talk about what we did with our game, because there's lots of ways you can publish Flash games, and mostly we just made a lot of mistakes. So but we learned some things while doing all those mistakes. So I'm going to start with the demo, because that's probably more interesting than watching slides. So the game. So basically, Cluster Outbreak is a RTS. I might just turn off the music. An RTS set on Google Maps. So you control the police, and your enemy, if I can use this touch panel, is the zombies. So you get some out. Oops, I don't actually have this plugged in. That's better. So you got a lot of zombies. Let's wait for that. You got a lot of zombies. Outbreaks of zombies. They infect the civilians, and some of the civilians are armed and can shoot back. But for the most part, you got to use your police to come in and clean up the zombies. If I went over here. For some reason, the easiest way through over to there is through that building. So yeah, that's basically it. So after a while of this, you just end up with way too many zombies, you can't control them all, and then some scientists appear, you have to go and rescue them, and then some pilots appear, you have to go rescue them, and then you have to get back to the helicopter up here and evacuate. So that's basically the game. We've released two versions of this. The first one was in November last year, and the second was in April this year, and we've been played. It's a free Flash game. We've been played about 1.3 million times since then, and so we've been played about 3,000 times a day at the moment. So pretty happy with that. Whoops, too far. So who am I? About 13 years ago, my first job out of uni, actually while I was still in uni, was working at working at Ratbag. Sorry, a developer in Adelaide, and I was a programmer then. Still am a programmer. So for the first year or two, or year and a bit, we worked in '98 on Powerslide. That was released. That was a AAA title. It was released via GT Interactive. They published Quake, so fairly big publishing company. They had a budget of about $1.2 million or something like that. That was released just in time for Christmas '98 and was sold about a few 100,000 copies, I think, mostly through Europe. And then in '99, I was lead programmer on Dirt Track Racing. We released that later that year, and then I think in early 2000 it was the highest selling PC racing game for a while. So since then, so I did that for a few years. Then I went into missile simulation for defence research, which was a lot like games, but more physics, less graphics. And then I went completely different and did oil and gas and mining software for the last 7 years, which is nothing at all like games. It was web-based stuff though, and then about 9 years ago I moved to Perth. So Binary Space, so Jay is the other half of Binary Space. I worked with him at Ratbag back in Adelaide. He was an artist and game designer there. And yeah, so about March last year, 18 months ago, he noticed that I'd done an update on LinkedIn, sent me an email, a couple of emails back and forth. He said, have you ever thought of making a game again? I had been thinking about it. I have two young kids that just slightly gotten old enough that I could actually put them to bed and they wouldn't wake up again. So I had an hour or two spare a night, so I thought, I'd been thinking about doing something. And then he mentioned that, and I thought, that sounds like a good idea, because I suck at art. So it was good to team up with someone else. So we started talking about what we could do. So why did we choose Google Maps? So initially when we started, he pitched his game design idea to me, and it was basically, the idea was an RTS with you versus the zombies. A city with civilians, the zombies would infect the civs, and you'd have to try to save the day. Initially we had no idea if we'd do it 2D or 3D, if it'd be mobile, PC, whatever. And then Jay sent me this sort of mock-up of what he thought the scale of the game would look like. So you'd have some zombies running around, some civs in here trying to keep away from the zombies, some police here, and basically how things would move through. and he'd just taken a screenshot from Google Maps to do that. And then he said, wouldn't it be great if we could do this on Google Maps? And in my day job, I'd actually done some work with Google Maps before for mining software, and so I knew that it was actually possible to build something on that, but that it would be using JavaScript, and JavaScript's not that fast for game development. But then I found out that about 6 months earlier, Google had released a Flash API for maps, and I thought, oh, that's pretty cool. We should be able to get some decent performance out of that. So the problem with that is that I don't really like Flash. So about 10 years ago, I did a small project for a customer of mine in Flash. I think it was Flash 4 or something like that, which is not CS4, but the really old one. And so Flash is basically a way for graphic designers to make movies. So this is a timeline up here. Click frame 1, draw a circle. Click frame 10, move the circle, and then when you play it back, it'll move the circle animated over those frames. And you can also insert bits and pieces of script and stuff like that to control behaviour, jump between frames, and things like that. So I wasn't really thrilled with that. I thought, oh well, maybe that's what we have to do. But things have changed in the last 10 years, which was nice. So the way Flash works is you've got a Flash project file. Flash then compiles it into a Swift file. You stick that on a website, and then your browser plays the movie. 5 years ago, what Adobe did was released a Flex SDK for Flash, and that's basically, and later on they open sourced that SDK. So basically you write code in ActionScript, which is Flash's scripting language. The Flex SDK compiler compiles it into a Swift, which then you can just use like any other Flash file. The other problem I was going to say about Flash is that it costs about $1,200, which is not so great for someone who just wants to do something for fun, and as an indie developer. With the Flex SDK, you can just write code in a text editor and compile it. That is fine. They also, Adobe sell an IDE for that, but it's about $350, so still not cheap. But then I found this thing called Flash Develop, which is free, open source, and so it really was the great price for an indie developer. So I was able to start developing basically with no cost down, which was nice. So when we started, we had no specific plans. We thought we'd just do this as a hobby, and we didn't know, if we'd make any money out of it at all, how we'd publish it, how we'd put it out there. We just thought, maybe we can put some Google ads around it. We'd read that some of the big portals would pay for Flash games. We thought we might make something from there. But one of the games that inspired us was Desktop Tower Defense, which had been released a year or so earlier. And they'd been played in their first year. They were played 40 million times, and they'd made about 100 grand out of it. So we didn't expect to do anywhere near as well as that, which we didn't, of course. But but it was inspirational, and we thought maybe we will earn some money. So between the two of us, we worked out a contract, so we were clear on what would happen if we did earn any money. So yeah, a lovely quote. So initially, the plan was we would do both of us would be doing it in our spare time. So it'd be 5 to 10 hours a week, something like that, for about 4 to 6 months. And that wasn't because we thought we'd be able to finish the game in that time. Like Jay's original pitch had so many features in it, we'd probably never finish it. It was more that I didn't want to spend any more than that amount of time on a single project without releasing something at least. So we had a sort of rough idea of sort of a basic idea of a game. So we started at the end of March last year. End of July was a 4-month deadline. End of September was the 6-month deadline. Still weren't finished. Still weren't anywhere near what we had initially planned to do. And so during October we basically cut the scope a lot to something that was really very simple that we thought we could finish reasonably quickly. So around November we were about ready to release. We thought we were ready to finish the game. And during development, the way I started was initially I had the map, and I just had circles running around on a map, and then I had zombies roaming around, then I had some civs and zombies, then I had the zombies chasing the civs, then I had, the civs would die and then turn back into zombies, then the civs would shoot back at the zombies, and so it wasn't until quite near the end where I actually put the police in and the pathfinding, all that stuff, so you'd actually play the game. Up until then it was really just sit and watch a simulation. And despite that, during that time we thought it's actually pretty fun to just sit there and watch the zombies kill all the humans. And so we thought what we'd do is before we release the game, a week before, we'll put out something, just a simulation as a way to sort of promote the game. And we came up with the imaginative title, Zombie Outbreak Simulator. So basically what it was is, you just watch the zombies kill all the humans. Oops, I have to stop doing that. And we had some options here, so you could control how many civilians, how many zombies, what percentage of civs were armed and so on. And so you could, have a bit of a play and see how things worked out. So we start that up there. So what we did So it was the Friday night, 20th of November, we put it up on our own website, and over the weekend it was played about 900 times. You know, we just sent it to our friends and a few zombie sites. We thought, that's pretty cool. And so Monday night, put the kids to bed, went and turned on my computer, and the site had just gone absolutely nuts. And over the weekend we'd had a few digs, but on that Monday evening we suddenly appeared on the front page of Dig, and our site was just getting hammered. It was being played more than once a second, which was just crazy. Which was fun, but also crazy. You can see here this is the traffic of our service, so pretty much nothing, and then suddenly our network card is pretty much maxed out. We had a few people complain that the game wasn't loading, that the server was not performing. Some people set up a mirror. By the time we went to bed that night, it was performing slowly, but for us it was still loading. But the next day I went to work, because I have a day job, and I tried to show some people at work, and it wasn't loading for them. So at lunchtime I went down to Macca's with my laptop, got on their Wi-Fi and just coded up. The problem we had is that Jay had built this really simple WordPress site around the game, and put on all this caching stuff which was supposed to make it run fast, but it was still, PHP was basically just killing the server. So I, at Macca's, coded up a static HTML version of the site and then emailed it to Jay so he could FTP it up there. And we put that on, and that basically brought the server back to life. So this here is about the point at which we put that on, so it calmed the server down a bit. So for those first 2 days we got about 90,000 hits a day for those first 2 days, and then it dropped off the top page of Dig, and it featured on a bunch of other websites, like it was on Gizmodo as well, and it spread a lot in those first few days, but then it started to die off. So what we did to make money out of it, because it was free, we just stuck heaps of ads on it. So on our page we had a Google ad above and below it, and when we started, we figured Google Ads was the thing to do, because you see them everywhere. When we were developing, we found something called Mochi, or Mochi Ads, and what they do is they're specifically an ad network for Flash games. So they have a really easy-to-use API, and so we stuck an ad on when the game loads. When you restart the sim, it shows another ad, and every few minutes it pops up another ad here. So we put just basically heaps of ads in there. And some people complained about the ads, but mostly people seem to put up with it. So Mochi, you can't actually, they have to approve your game for ads, and they don't do that until after you've released it. So what you do is you release it and then you submit. And so we did that on Friday night when we put the game out, and then over the weekend they responded and said, no, we're not approving your game. We're like, you bastards. But the reason is because they only sell ads for games. They don't put ads in like just flash animations and things like that, and they said our game wasn't enough of a game, because really you just sit there and watch it. So we replied to say, did you notice the bit where you can actually change the options? Because that's the bit that actually makes it sort of interactive. It's not really a game though. And so they didn't respond to us over the weekend. Maybe they were taking time off. But then after we got Doug, we replied again and said, did you notice the options? And by the way, we're on the front page of Dig. And then we got approved almost straight away. So then we started seeing money appear in our account of Mochi. So that was nice.